anybody have a mic that you need to put on Senator Graham? Does anybody else have one that you want him to wear? Well, one, thanks for coming. This is the 8th of January, and we're already hit our debt limit in terms of the nation's ability to borrow money. So I want to let people in South Carolina understand where I'm coming from. I know that we must raise the debt ceiling in a responsible way. The ability to borrow money by the federal government is essential in terms of keeping services flowing to the people. The willingness of the federal government to borrow money without a plan to get out of debt is damning us as a nation to becoming Greece. To me, the perfect plan is to raise the debt ceiling in a responsible fashion. That would include a plan in place to eventually get this nation out of debt. Mr. President, please be on notice that you will not get a blank check from Lindsey Graham when it comes to raising the debt ceiling. When you were in the Senate, you voted against raising the debt ceiling because you said then it would be irresponsible to keep borrowing money without addressing our fiscal problems. This fiscal cliff debacle did nothing but raise revenue. We increased the deficit. We did not decrease the deficit. So, Mr. President, if you want me to vote to borrow more money, I need a commitment from you that you will work with me and others to cut spending dollar for dollar. We're burning through money. We're on the road to becoming Greece, and it needs to stop. And I need the help of the American people, the people of South Carolina, to stand behind me and others with a simple message to every politician in Washington. No more borrowing money until we get a plan to get out of debt. And if we borrow $1, we're going to cut $1. And we're not going to borrow money until we come up with a budget telling you, the American people, how we're going to spend it. The only place that's radical is in Washington. Because if you tried to borrow money in South Carolina and you didn't have a budget to show your banker, you wouldn't get a loan because you don't deserve to have a loan. We're in a printing shop. This is a good venue to discuss our fiscal problems. We're printing money as fast as the machines can print it. We're blowing through $2.1 trillion every 17 months. 42 cents of every dollar that we spend is borrowed money. In 2037, the national debt will be twice the size of the American economy, and we will smother the American dream. The good news is that we're one big deal away from becoming a dominant country in the 21st century. The bad news is without major change, we're on the road to becoming Greece, and the American dream will be lost. I will not let the sequestration goat me into borrowing money we can't afford to borrow without a plan to get out of debt. As much as I hate what will happen to the Defense Department, the most irresponsible thing we could do in Washington is to continue borrowing money without a plan to get out of debt. My response to President Obama, you're the commander-in-chief, not me. You're the guy that should be out there saying, I will not allow the Defense Department to be gutted. I will not allow the Defense Department to become a hollow force. So rather than Lindsey Graham having the burden to save the Defense Department from draconian cuts, where is the commander-in-chief? So, Mr. President, we need to work together to avoid sequestration. We raised $600 billion in revenue, and we didn't cut one dime out of the federal budget deficit. Now you're asking me. I will not have another debate with this Congress over whether or not they should pay the bills that they have already racked up through the laws that they have passed. Didn't you sign these laws? Mr. President, you're the leader of this nation. You won the election. Lead. Quit demagoguing. Can you imagine any president claiming they have the power alone to raise the debt ceiling, when in the Constitution it expressly says only the Congress can borrow money? Mr. President, if you think you can go around Congress, you can forget that. There'll be one hell of a fight over that idea. No more blank checks to Barack Obama. That is the message of this news conference. I will work with you in a bipartisan fashion to come up with a plan to avoid the Defense Department from being gutted and to finally turn this country around. But if we're going to borrow a dollar, we're going to cut a dollar. I'm not asking the President to privatize Social Security. I'm not asking him to turn Medicare into a voucher plan. But if we would work together, like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, adjusted the age for retirement for Medicare because people are living so much longer, asked people in my income level to pay more because we can afford to, and adjusted how you calculate benefits in terms of inflation, those three things alone would begin to turn this country around. The House will increase the debt ceiling with a plan to get out of debt. And I appreciate the fact that Speaker Boehner is no longer going to directly negotiate with the President. He has never done a big deal about big problems. Every big idea that he's embraced in the last 4 years have been big liberal ideas. Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, huge stimulus packages. In his first 4 years, he added more debt in his first 4 years than every president in the history of the country combined. It is clear to me that in his first 4 years, he's not interested in shrinking the federal government. He's interested in growing it beyond our ability to pay for it. That ought to be a wake-up call for all of us. The interest on the debt, along with entitlement spending, is 70% of the federal budget. So in the next 4 years, we're going to have either agreement or a constant struggle to save the American dream. It is up to Barack Obama what road he takes. If he will go down the road of fiscal responsibility and common sense entitlement reform, I will be his partner. If he continues down the road of confrontation, in your face, big liberal government, we're going to continue to have one hell of a fight. Don't let my country become Greece. Think about my kids and my grandkids. Think about the next generation. And that's what this whole issue is about, the ability to sustain a government we can afford. And speaking of future generations, come on up here, guys. Now, what's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew? Alex. They owe $52,000, their share of the debt. It is their futures at stake. We're passing on to them an unsustainable debt situation that could be easily corrected. So, Mr. President, when I say no to borrowing $2 trillion more that we will spend in 17 months without a plan to get out of debt, I'm saying it on their behalf. When I tell you we must negotiate over raising the debt ceiling, it's not about me or you, but it's about these guys and their generation. And in that what it's about, I don't want to be in a Congress that was so self-centered and selfish that we lost the ability to make hard decisions to make the future better for those who follow us. Because the American dream is, simply put, that your kids can do as well or better than you've done. And I can promise you this, if we continue to borrow money without a plan to get out of debt, and if we don't cut spending by $1 for every dollar we borrow, there is no way these two young men are going to be able to have the future that all of us would want. We're very much, ladies and gentlemen, on the road to becoming Greece. Thank y'all guys. Anything else? Thanks much.
Controversial nomination. I think his policy views toward Iran and Israel are really out of the mainstream. We live in very dangerous times. I worry about the signal he sent to Iran. He voted against Iranian sanctions from the two senators. They give us all the information about the things they're talking about. So I'm going to hold it right, Benghazi. The administration is stonewalling this on big guys. The CIA claimed they changed the talking points, so I want to know, did they, and if so, why?
This is a family business. This is a third generation print shop, and that's becoming fewer and further between.
70% of businesses, family businesses, are lost by the third generation. And one of the big issues is the death tax, because you have to buy the business back from the government. So one of the positive things about this fiscal cliff deal is that the death tax at the end of the year was going to go to 55% with $1 million exemption. We were able to get it at 40% with a $5 million per spouse exemption. So it probably saves this business from being taxed out of extinction, out of business. So that was a good thing. Anything else you need to tell me?
That's to keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, good.